We haven't started the meeting yet. I guess Mike's going to be a regular.
First one anyway.
Oh God, well, you're a good husband. Good husband. Let's see. I'll text Henry.
Is Tim on?
Tim's here.
Is
I'm sorry, I'm here. Yep.
I'm live. Yeah.
turn on his computer?
I can turn it off. Go ahead.
It's going to be a few minutes. I don't know if you want to get started, and I don't.
Wait, because he told me he wanted to personally welcome everybody.
Else is.
That and I don't think we have a particularly intense agenda tonight, so
Noted.
we can spend a few minutes.
Are we still currently live on TV or holding?
We can ask. It looks like we are holding.
Yeah, so I would stay holding until Henry comes then.
Yes, CTM Studios on hold.
Advisory board that they'd be coming. I'm on my own. I'm good.
Anybody? I can't figure out who this MSC is. You can come back in if you show your face.
Is that you?
What do you do?
How are you?
Hi, I'm trying to set it up for him. 1 second.
Aren't you a good daughter? He pays you though, right? Tim's being a little noisy.
Colleen, do you have the new books for all of us?
All right, we're almost 10 minutes in.
No.
Not on TV yet. It could be a dad joke. You know? It's almost 10. You can go ahead and start.
Okay, it is 7:09, Wednesday, April 14th. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. Welcome to the planning board meeting for Wednesday, April 14th, 2021. This meeting is being televised by Chelmsford Telemedia and is being conducted remotely. We'd like to welcome the new members, Deidre Conley, Paul McDougall, Erica Clifford, and myself, Tim Shanahan. I know Henry will want to say something to you guys when he gets on, so we'll wait for him when he does that. So do you want to go to one Billerica, or are we going to wait for Henry for that? Or do you want to do minutes or?
We could probably do the minutes. I think we have to reorganize the, before we go into one Billerica. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, Mike. So maybe we can go to minutes, Colleen?
Sure.
Okay, did everybody get a chance to take a look at the minutes? And if so, let's start with 2/10/21.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of February 10th, 2021.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 By the way,
Okay.
can I throw an observation in here quickly? Evan, in looking over the rules for the Zoom, or the remote minutes, do we actually need to roll call every vote?
I
I think we do.
think you're supposed to. Some of the votes are pretty straightforward or unanimous. I
Yeah,
think the board has been doing roll call on special permit votes.
yes, we have.
So I think you've been doing it for the most part properly.
If this passes muster, I'm fine with it. I just thought I'd bring it up.
Okay, I mean, it's not a problem either going down the list too and just asking, everybody and then saying aye if we need to do that too, but. Okay, so next is next up would be the minutes from 1/13/2021. Has everyone had a chance to review those? And if so, any issues? If not, can we get a motion?
Is it 113? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, yeah, did I say?
Can you put the agenda back on, Colleen?
Yep.
Is that correct? Is it 113?
No, it's 2/24. I don't know why. I think I opened it and it was 1/13. The meeting minutes are from 2/24/2021. Thank you, Mike, for catching that.
That's right. So I'll make a motion to accept the 2/24/21 meeting minutes.
And I will second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, Mike Raisbach, aye. Nancy?
Aye.
Aye.
Deidre, Paul?
Aye.
Even if they have to vote on those, but
Yeah, they're not able to
They
vote.
can't vote on it if they weren't there.
yeah, that's
I did take a look at them. I'll vote for them.
all right. Henry's there. Well,
Who's in the house?
Hi, Henry.
Sorry for the,
no,
late
we
for
were
tonight.
wasting time until you got there. So we took care of the minutes and now you can take over.
Oh, thank you, Tim. Well, it's actually pretty easy for me tonight. So what we're going to try to do is refill our seats, and reorganize things. As chair, I would look for somebody to give a nomination for a replacement of me, the chair.
So I make a motion for Tim Shanahan to be chair of the planning board for this year.
I'll second. Or-
You accept him?
I do.
All in favor?
Well, are there any other nominations?
All right, is there any other nominations?
You can close the nominations.
All in favor, I'll do a roll call. Mike Raisbach,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Mike Walsh,
Aye.
Deirdre,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Erica,
Aye.
and I'll be an aye also, so it's unanimous.
Thank you.
Take over, Tim.
So it's all yours now, Tim. You get to hold the rest of the elections.
Thank you very much. So next, we would go to vice chair. Do we have any nominations for vice chair?
I would nominate Mike Raisbach.
Mike Raisbach, would you accept it?
I would second that.
It's
Yeah, I'll certainly accept.
excellent. So then we would close the
No,
nominations.
do we have any other nominations?
Any others? Thank you. Any other nominations for vice chair? None. Okay. Now we'll close the nomination. Do you have to do a vote on that, or you can close it?
It was only the one.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. All right. So all in favor for Mike Raisbach for chair. So Henry,
Aye.
Mike Raisbach,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Mike Walsh,
Aye.
Deidre Conley,
Aye.
Paul McDougall,
Aye.
and Erica.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And Mike, congrats on the vice chair. Next up would be the clerk. Do we have any nominations for the clerk?
I nominate Nancy Arroway.
I'll second that. Well, can I second that as chair?
No,
Anyone else second that?
Oh, I'll second it.
that.
Excellent. Mike seconded. All right, any other nominations for the clerk? Anyone else and nominee?
Anybody interested?
Looks like no. So all in favor, Henry,
Aye.
Mike Raisbach,
Aye.
Nancy,
I abstain.
Mike Walsh,
Aye.
Deidre Conley,
Aye.
Paul McDougal,
Aye.
and Erica Clifford.
Aye.
Okay, congratulations, Nancy, on the clerk. Next would be liaison assignments. I'm gonna need a little help with these, Colleen. I don't know, I don't want to forget any of them, so,
I got them up on the screen. Let me,
okay. So for the master plan, right now, we have,
Colleen, can you make that bigger? There you go.
Okay.
for the master plan, right now, we have Nancy and Mike Raisbach. Would you guys like to continue on that, or is anybody else interested?
Yeah, we're getting close to the close on it. I don't think it makes sense to change horses.
Yeah, I would agree. As a matter of fact, I think we're going to be presenting some stuff to this board within a meeting or two.
Excellent. I think we would agree too. Everybody okay with that? Do we have to vote on that, or is that just accepted?
That's you.
Okay, so I guess that's it then. We're accepted. You two will continue on as the master plan. Next up, Community Preservation Committee. Henry's on that.
I gotta step back from some of this stuff between my father and the farm here. I'm really getting cramped for time.
Okay.
CPC is a really good one to be on if you're interested.
I would be interested in that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Deidre would be interested. Anybody else? Okay, so Deidre, no one else. It's all yours. Thank you very much.
That's a good-
What's that?
Housing advisory?
Yep. Next up, Housing Advisory. I am on that, and Dawn was also on it with me. Is there anyone else that I wouldn't mind staying on it if somebody else would want to do it with me, or sometimes it's tough during the day, but
So, Tim, you're the official liaison. Donald, I think, was on occasion attending out of interest.
okay.
There's one planning board liaison to that committee.
Okay, so you can't have anybody, you couldn't have two members, and if one couldn't show us.
You could do that if you wanted to. But there's
can
only
bet.
one vote. When it comes to a vote, there's only one planning board member voting.
Okay,
could-
so if
I'm pretty flexible during the day usually, so.
Okay,
I could step up for that also.
all right, and then Paul, if it comes to a vote, obviously only one of us could vote, so that's fine.
Sure.
I have no issue with that. All right, well, so then if everyone's okay with it, is there anyone else have interest in being on the Housing Advisory? Okay, so nobody. So Paul, it will be you and working together. I'll email you after my contact info. Is that fine, Evan? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Next up is the Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan, Mike Walsh.
Yeah, I'll stay on it if no one else wants it or any of the new members want to participate. Just let me know if you prefer to do that.
Anybody else want to be on that? Excellent. Mike, it's all yours. Thank you. The Northern Middlesex Council of Governments. Henry,
It's a very good thing for somebody to be involved if you want to know how our local government works. There's millions of dollars that are allocated
Henry, how often do they meet?
once to twice a month, depending on what's going on.
How long are the meetings? Are they during the day, night?
They're in the
weekend?
evening. They're about an hour. They supply coffee, and we've been
No,
very
that's what
well
you told me when I
represented.
came on the planning board. They were about an hour.
Yeah.
Just joking.
It's really good. I mean, I would like to take and see if we could keep George as an alternate, Even though he's not on the planning board, he has so much knowledge with all those people that are involved in that. It's
I
just
think
hard
it's
to miss, but
great.
we do need a one member. All
I could do that with George.
right, that would be great.
All right, excellent. So Paul will be the member representing, and then George will be an alternate. Is that correct? All right. Next up is the Economic Development Committee.
So,
We had Don-
so in this one, Donald was never the planning board rep. When EDC was first created, Donald was a citizen rep. I think most recently, I think by default, Mike Raisbach
Yeah.
was the planning board liaison. So you
Okay.
need to designate somebody.
Yeah, I'd be willing, actually somewhat interested.
Okay, anybody else interested in the EDC? All right, it's all yours, Mike.
Thanks.
Thank you. Center Village, Nancy?
Yeah, I'll keep it.
Okay, anybody else have any interest on the Center Village? Okay, thank you, Nancy. Now the liaison for non-voting, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Hank was on it. Does anyone have any interest in this? Erica, would you be interested? I'm only asking because Hank was, and maybe would be a good one to be on. How often do
Yeah,
they?
I might
how
be able
of-
to do that one.
Okay, how often do they meet?
Monthly.
Monthly?
Yeah.
And is it the same thing, like an hour or?
Yeah, it's not a lot of heavy lifting.
No.
Yeah, their meetings usually are no more than an hour, hour and a half.
Okay.
Yeah, they're a nice bunch.
Okay, so you're okay with that, Erica?
Certainly, yep.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. Next is historical. Nancy, does anyone else have an interest in being on the historical commission?
I'll keep it if nobody wants to step forward to represent their concerns on applications.
I could be interested if you're willing, not wanting to do it, Nancy, or if you're wanting to step back. You're kind of busy.
I'm attached to this, but I have more to do than I have time to do. And I have gone through a number of years of putting bylaws forward at town meeting and having them stomped on for historic preservation. So I would really like to see somebody else step forward with ideas on how to advocate within the zoning bylaws for preservation of our historic structures, because I'm at a loss.
Could you maybe work with her, or Nancy? I know you.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so Deidre, if you're interested in doing it, and Nancy
Yeah.
could help direct you, okay?
Only once a month.
Yeah.
In the evening, Colleen?
Yeah, it's an evening.
Yes, it's the second Tuesday.
Second Tuesday, 7:30.
Okay,
So it looks like we've completed the list, but I have a question. I was looking this over earlier today or yesterday and wondering, it seems surprising to me that there's not a liaison to either Conservation Commission or Board of Health, or for that matter, a select board. And not that I'm looking for like creating more work, but it seems like there's issues that overlap with the work of the planning board, specifically with conservation and Board of Health, that it might be beneficial to have a liaison, non-voting. I don't know what other people think of that.
Deidre, I think it's a great point. And Evan, is that something, is it just not been done in the past? Could we do that, or?
You can certainly add, this would be non-voting, Colleen. So you can certainly add a non-voting liaison to Conservation, Board of Selectmen, Board of Health, Zoning Board.
Okay, so Deidre, the ones you mentioned, which which ones were they again? Could you say them one more time?
Well, I said conservation and Board of Health and Select Board, but Evan added in ZBA, which I think, I mean, I don't know, maybe we're getting overloaded with committee
I'm
assignments.
willing to take ZBA.
I'd be willing to take Concom.
Deidre, would you take Board of Health?
Absolutely.
Perfect. You guys just sold them all right there. That was amazing.
Select Board, but maybe we all watch their meetings.
Well,
when we can.
they will often send somebody to our meeting. So we get some connection that way.
Just doing
Okay, one more thing.
conservation.
Can I interject? My name is actually pronounced Deirdre.
Deirdre, I'm sorry. Was I saying it wrong? Deirdre. I apologize.
That's fine.
Who volunteered for conservation? I'm sorry.
Mike.
Me.
Deirdre again? Okay, and then.
No, Mike.
Mike.
Mike Raisbach.
And
Deirdre,
what was the other one?
I say Chelmsford wrong too, so. Sorry, Colin, go ahead.
I'm just writing these down. So Board of Health and ZBA?
So Board of Health is me and ZBA is Nancy.
All right. All righty.
Excellent. Thank you, Deirdre, for that. And thank you everyone for volunteering. All right, so we ready to go to 1 Billerica Road now? Colleen or Evan, do we have anything else? I miss anything?
No, you're all set. I sent out an email from Melissa Robbins on 1 Billerica Road. Her email basically indicates that they are withdrawing this administrative request. So if the board could just vote to accept the withdrawal, that would kind of close up this particular agenda item.
Okay, can I have a motion, please?
Yeah, I would move to accept the withdrawal without prejudice.
I'll second it.
Second by Henry. All in favor? Should I go down or are we
Yeah,
up?
you probably should.
Okay, Henry?
Aye.
Aye, Mike Raisbach.
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Mike Walsh?
Aye.
Deirdre?
Actually, I can't even vote on that thing. Somebody else should second it because I never took any part of it. Is that true?
Yeah, I should
Evan?
not. I shouldn't vote either. I abstain.
Now, can I just ask something, Evan, while we're talking about this? So also, I wasn't involved with this last one, right? Because of missing the not being at the meetings. But is this now something new? Because
Yes. Yes.
all right, so everyone that's involved now could be. Deirdre not because she's probably in the butter, right?
Quite possibly.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
Yep. No, Tim, you would be eligible. And if at least one full member, Henry or Deidre, recused, then Erica would be eligible to step up.
Okay, so if Henry, are you gonna?
I'll vote on it. That's fine. It's just
Okay, and Deirdre, you're gonna step back, right? All right, so we'll, Henry, you made the second.
aye. Yeah, second.
Okay, and then Henry, you said aye. Mike Raisbach, aye. Nancy.
Aye.
Mike Walsh.
Aye.
Paul
Aye.
and Erica.
Aye.
All right, excellent. So we're all set with that. 1 Billerica has been moved. Next up, I believe, would be the presentation for Stormwater Bylaw.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christina.
No problem. Christina Papadopoulos, Town Engineer. Colleen, do you want to present the slideshow or should I?
I can let you do it so you can, here. Do you have it ready?
So I don't typically do the presenting. I'm usually on your end.
Okay, I'll do it. No
You
problem.
sure?
Yep.
Okay,
I just thought, sometimes I fall behind.
it's only like 8 slides. It's not, yeah, it's all good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Give me 1 second. It's scanning for viruses.
Oh. So the background is, I'm going to talk about the Stormwater Bylaw, and it's new to the town of Chelmsford. And we're presenting it at town meeting, which is now going to be in June from what we hear. And this presentation will go over basically why we need this new Stormwater Bylaw, what's inside of it, who's going to be affected by it, how they're going to be affected. And as I go through it, if there's something that really doesn't make sense, just interject and ask me a question. I'm happy to answer as best I can. Thank you, Colleen. That was the intro. So next, so why do we need a new stormwater bylaw? So basically EPA, through the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, which we call the MS4, because it's much simpler, the MS4 permit. That is the permit that allows the town of Chelmsford to discharge our stormwater to the waters of the US. Okay, so we needed to apply to the EPA to get this permit, and we have this permit now. Because of this permit and all of the requirements, we established our stormwater utility, which helps to pay for all of these requirements. So through the MS4 permit, one of the requirements is the permittees must update their regulatory mechanism, however we see fit, by June 30th of this year. And that is the part in the MS4 permit that says that we need to do so. So this bylaw that we've put together encompasses all of the recommendations that were made by two different consultants, Weston and Sampson. We met with them through our Stormwater Master Plan review, and they came up with some of these recommendations that you'll see inside the bylaw, as well as Tyne Bond, who we worked with through the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, the NIMCOG, as was mentioned earlier. They procured a grant that paid for Tyne Bond to develop the template that we used to write this bylaw. So both Tyne Bond and Weston and Sampson reviewed our existing regulations. They reviewed what EPA is requiring for through the new permit and new requirements, and they gave us their opinions on what we needed to do to be in compliance. So that this encompasses everything. We've had a lot of minds and thoughts, and it's been done very thoughtfully. I want to just point that out. So they were all reviewed to review our regulations. So this new bylaw will be a concise set of stormwater bylaws all in one place, whereas now we have a lot of different regulations in a lot of different areas. So this actually helps everyone to navigate the permitting and alleviates confusion by having everything in one place. It also helps clarify the roles and responsibilities of the Stormwater Authority and associated regulatory requirements. So Chelmsford does not currently have any stormwater regulations for projects that are not covered by either the Planning Board, Conservation Commission, or Zoning Board of Appeals process. So that's what this attempts to cover. That was a sort of a gap that we noticed in the regulation review that everybody did. Is, this is a piece that we're missing. So this bylaw helps cover that. EPA has also expressed yes.
Question.
Sure.
That last statement that this covers things that are not covered by the Planning Board, Concom, or ZBA. So
Sure.
does that basically mean building projects that are approved by the building inspector only? Or what does it mean?
It can be a building project that would just be seen by the building commissioner. It could be that. It could be something that doesn't need a building permit at all. Let's say somebody is, just deciding to regrade, an acre of their yard for whatever reason. If there is a potential for problems related to stormwater, then this permit would help. This bylaw would help cover those requirements.
If you had a private citizen that was simply doing work in their yard, how would they know or comprehend this bylaw?
That's, I guess, the problem with pretty much any regulation, we're gonna do our best.
Yeah, but,
All right, I got a question.
Yeah.
Agriculture, when I went to dig the pond up at Sheehan's, it was quite an issue until they found out they had no control over it. It was all regulated by the state. You're saying regrading an acre. We do that every single year.
Oh, is that under agricultural use though?
That's my question to you. Does this take under agricultural use?
Oh, agricultural is exempt.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a regular, that's no, there's actually a bunch of exemptions.
All right.
Okay.
So it's, yeah, but like, let's see, do I have my list of exemptions?
Yeah, that would be great to hear.
All right, so just to go over the exemptions real quick, although we haven't gone into the permit yet, but I will just go through exemptions. Let's see. Maintenance of existing landscaping, gardens, or lawn areas associated with a single-family dwelling constructed in such a way as not to cause a nuisance. Construction of fencing that will not substantially alter existing terrain or drainage patterns. Construction of utilities other than drainage, gas, water, electric, telephone, which will not alter terrain or drainage patterns or result in discharge of sediment or other pollutants to the MS4 or directly or indirectly to watercourse or waters of the Commonwealth. Normal maintenance and improvement of land in agricultural or aquacultural use as defined by Mass Wetlands Protection Act, Regulation 310 CMR 10.04. Municipal roadway maintenance, including crack sealing, milling, paving, and sidewalk construction and repair. Maintenance of stormwater treatment structures conducted in such a way that does not cause discharge or sediment or other pollutants to the MS4 or directly or indirectly to a watercourse or waters of the Commonwealth. So sort of a, basic exemptions that seem reasonable, right? So my last point on the slide is that during many presentations we've had and workshops we've had with EPA and DEP about the new MS4 requirements and our requirement, the town's requirements to produce some kind of regulation or bylaw. The EPA has expressed a preference to this model bylaw, which was prepared by Ty and Bond, like I said, because it allows municipalities to revise the regulations as the requirements change. So the next slide, please. So what does this bylaw do? So it requires stormwater management systems to be designed in compliance with the 2008 Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook, which we call the handbook. That is currently what we're using to do our stormwater reviews here in town. That is a general engineering, anyone in Massachusetts, that's what they're using to do their engineering designs, are those regulations in that handbook, okay? However, they're changing. So since both the state and federal stormwater regulations are going to be changing soon, what is best to do is to allow the DPW to modify the regulations as those federal and state regulations change. So this bylaw would be to implement and enforce a program to reduce pollutants and stormwater runoff to the MS4 from land disturbance of 1 acre or more within the regulated area. It also provides on a case-by-case basis an administrative land disturbance approval, which is for projects between 20,000 square feet and an acre, because those need to be looked at individually. They don't require the same amount of detail as a project that is going to be disturbing an acre or more. So those are done on a much simpler process. This bylaw would meet additional requirements for projects where stormwater discharges to impaired waters or water subject to a TMDL, total maximum daily load. So that is important, where we're targeting the pollutant that is actually causing the problem in a certain water body. And we're saying, hey, this site produces this pollutant to this water body. Let's treat that pollutant on the site now that it's going through some kind of redevelopment process. And therefore we can, in the long run, reduce the amount of pollution in the water body. So this allows us to ask for additional specific pollutant removal. We are also required to meet the requirements for record keeping and annual reports. So through this new permit, we have a lot of reporting that we need to do, and this actually would help us produce those. And it also includes requirements in the stormwater bylaw regarding post-construction stormwater treatment. So what happens after, the project is done and everybody walks away? Well, now we would have in this bylaw a requirement for a site, a private site, to continue to maintain their stormwater systems. So like I said, you've seen it a lot in the planning board process where we ask them to record that within their decision, right? So we're taking that process that we already do here in the planning board, and we're extending it to projects that don't necessarily come to the planning board. So next slide, please. So here is just a brief overview of the technical requirements that we needed. So these all need to be part of our regulations as well. These are not, we didn't make these up. These were given to us by EPA. So I've been asked, why, where did you come up with these numbers? We didn't come up with the numbers. These are black and white written right in the our MS4 permit. Does someone have a question? No, okay. All right, so we are required, the required total phosphorus and total suspended solids reduction from post-construction stormwater runoff with new and redevelopment are as defined by the permit. New development are required to have a 90% removal of average annual load of TSS and 60% average annual load of total phosphorus. In redevelopment projects, they would need to remove 80% of annual total load of TSS and 50% removal of average annual load of total phosphorus. How do we do that? You might be asking. That's through just designing a various BMP structural stormwater treatment units that do those specific things. And that's what we would be requiring them to do.
Christina, where does this phosphorus coming from? I understand suspended solids, but where's the phosphorus coming from?
So in talking to the EPA about phosphorus, the biggest collector of phosphorus that is just coming off of, phosphorus is coming off of the trees. It's just in the air. And the more impervious area we have, which Chelmsford, we are an urbanized community with a lot of impervious area. So we tend to produce a lot of phosphorus because of our large amount of impervious area. So so it doesn't even matter if it's like our roof kind of collects the same, phosphorus as does a parking lot. It's just any impervious area because it can't soak into the ground and it just will run off the surface.
So is it being carried in the air or is it coming from plant material that has absorbed it from the ground?
It is coming from the air and it is coming from the air and it's falling on the impervious surfaces. And then being collected, and then when the rain comes, it washes it down and carries it to the waterway.
So this bylaw is about collecting the contaminants that's in rainwater and filtering them out of our streams?
Filtering them out of the project site before it gets to the stream.
Okay.
Did that make sense? Okay.
The description makes sense. I don't know whether the concept makes sense.
Okay.
But that's not your doing.
Oh, okay.
It's just not your doing.
All right.
Christina,
All right.
does this add any more positions to stormwater? If you're
No, so
hiring
we
more
already have a stormwater engineer.
All right.
And we already have a DPW inspector.
Yeah.
And you already have me.
You don't know how many times I hear about that new Tahoe that's driving around town that says stormwater on the side door. People are asking, why did they have to buy a Tahoe?
Why not?
Because it's taxpayers' money that you're spending. That's the way the people
Okay,
look
well,
at it.
I mean, it's a needed vehicle. I mean, it's right now it's out collecting stormwater samples. So it's a needed vehicle.
Honestly, I don't even know if that's the topic now, but I will say this, that because the fire department even has, when they get them at a discounted rate too, so.
I understand. I understand there's a lot of people that said, we've built out a whole department with new equipment and everything else.
I get it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if there's adding more people to the payroll, that's all.
No, so it's not, this does not need any more people. We already have the stormwater engineer, like I said. And we already have the DPW inspector and we have me.
All right.
So what is
So-
this going to cost the people of Chelmsford?
This is already part of what we need to do, and it does not look like it needs to cost anything more.
Who pays for the reporting?
We're already doing the reporting yearly through the stormwater division.
I thought it said that there was a lot more reporting involved.
Oh, well, I mean, for this part, I mean, more than I guess we were doing before we had this MS4 permit. But it's already part of our new normal, I guess.
Christina, why don't you and Evan discuss the town meeting vote that allowed this? This was all.
I'm pretty sure most people are aware of it, Colleen. I know what we're doing here. We're trying something new. We're the ones that are gonna get yelled at. It's our point to take and ask questions. Sorry, Tim, I shouldn't have cut in.
No worries. All right. So I mean, why don't we do this, Christina? Because I feel like we keep interrupting and I get it. Maybe why don't you run
Okay.
through it and then we'll save our questions. We'll go around the board and we can all ask questions. Is that fine with everyone?
That's a great idea.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. And thank you, Christina. Go ahead.
Oh, it's no problem. I honestly don't mind. If there's something in here that just doesn't make any sense, I would prefer you to stop me and then I'll explain it. Like I said, I only have like 8 slides. It's not,
Okay,
a really
that's
long
fine.
presentation. But yeah, I expect there to be a lot of questions. So
Okay.
I'm good with that.
You guys
Um,
heard her. If you have questions, feel free to ask. Go ahead, Christina.
So the other things that are required by the EPA are that we have a requirement to submit as-built drawings within 1 year of completion of construction. Very often, so from our past experiences, there have been projects that don't need a final, let's say, occupancy. So we have nothing to hold over them, let's say. We have no requirements, no other regulations that say we need a final as-built after you've done constructing all this stormwater stuff in the ground. This bylaw helps cover that gap. So this bylaw just tries to help, fill in some of the gaps that we have. It also requires us to have a requirement for management of construction site wastes, which we don't currently have, an inspection and enforcement of sites before, during, and after construction. So we hope that this means that you'll be seeing a lot more inspections of various stormwater devices or erosion control devices. Next slide, please. So this is where I tried to take a look at the 4 different stakeholders and how it would affect everyone. So that's kind of like what you were touching upon before with the questions on, how much it's going to cost and all that stuff. So, we see developers as being affected by actually clearing things up by having one set of rules for stormwater. It alleviates confusion in that aspect. They would be understanding that the focus is going to be to improve water quality. And they should expect some additional inspections, just being able to coordinate with the DPW on providing us time and access to do those inspections. And we would have clear erosion control requirements. How does it affect the boards? So for you like planning board, for instance, it would allow the DPW to review the stormwater compliance with the EPA and MS4 requirements, because it allows local regulations to follow the EPA and Mass DEP revisions in stormwater requirements. Like I said, both of those, the basic the basic design criteria that we've been going off of is changing in the next year. So we can't put all that into our bylaw and then just have to change it again. So this alleviates that that headache. And it would be basically no additional effort that I can see from boards because the DPW would oversee the program. How does it affect the DPW? We would be issuing the stormwater permits as necessary. We would be the ones inspecting the sites and reviewing plans for compliance with the state and federal requirements, which I'm already doing anyway. So it would just be a continuation of that process. How would it affect the residents? Residents would, they would see an encouragement in groundwater recharge, which helps with drinking water. So drinking water supplies are important to the residents. And when you have people being encouraged to recharge their groundwater, we should see an improvement in that. It also encourages low impact development. And as you know, low impact development means some improved aesthetics. We have less impervious area, more plantings, more rain gardens, things like that. So overall, it should improve the water quality, which we all enjoy, the various waterways and wetlands in Chelmsford. And we like to help keep those healthy, so they're swimmable and fishable and enjoyable. It also would improve erosion control. So hopefully, as you're driving around town, you would see an improved amount of construction site inspections. Next slide, please. So what are the repercussions if we don't pass the bylaw? And it is quite simple. It is an EPA regulation. So the stormwater, I guess, well, let's go back. The stormwater regulations would remain antiquated. So we currently have various older versions of our stormwater regulations. They haven't been revised since probably the 90s. And it's, you know, time to bring our regulations up to speed. So it would be my intention to, once this bylaw gets passed, that we would come back again, revisit our stormwater regulations among all of our various bylaws and other regulational entities, that we go to next town meeting in the fall and revise all of them so that we have one concise set of current stormwater regulations. Like I said, the town would not be compliant with the EPA MS4 permit, which means that the town would get fined by EPA for not being in compliance with their permit. So, I mean, their requirements are very clear. This is what they want, some kind of regulation that covers these things. And that is what we have very thoughtfully prepared and tailored to Chelmsford and the Chelmsford's needs and the way that we've seen construction in Chelmsford. Next slide, please. So what would happen in the next steps is that hopefully this would be effective in the fall of 2021, pending approval by the Attorney General's office. Neighboring towns have similar bylaws, so they are all required to modify their regulations exactly the same way we are. So we're not alone. I don't want you to feel like, oh, it's all Chelmsford again. I mean, a lot of other towns already have bylaws in place, and all they need to do is revise their regulations. So we're just kind of doing the same thing, but we're starting with a fresh set of bylaws and would have also a set of regulations that complied as well. So people wonder what would happen to existing projects. They would be grandfathered until the next time that they disturbed an acre or more. So the DPW is ready to implement the bylaw, like I said. We don't need anything new to do this. Update, like I said earlier, updates to our local regulations will happen, but first we need the state to revise their regulations. This would hopefully improve water quality. That's the ultimate goal, you know, that this bylaw is not to create, you know, a headache for anybody. We're really just trying to do what's best for the environment and reduce the amount of pollutants, specifically fish pollutants that are causing the problem to the water bodies. Another positive thing is it encourages groundwater recharge. You'll see an improvement in erosion control and hopefully improvement of aquatic and wildlife habitat. Those are all important things to me, and I hope you guys as well. And that concludes my presentation. And I am happy to answer questions. And thank you for listening to that. So,
Christina, how many inspections are being added and who's paying for those?
so we're already out inspecting and we're already starting the process of the, there are certain forms that we need to fill out when we do these stormwater inspections, and they're already currently filling them out. So it's not really going to be anything different than what we're doing.
Christina, thank you for your time. We appreciate your presentation. I'll go around the board. Nancy, I know you already, do you have any more questions, Nancy?
No, I don't think I do.
Okay, Henry?
No, I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. I'm sorry, I got to ask some hard questions, but that's my job.
It's okay.
You know, did you, on the Verizon building, where the curb cut down and they went across the bark mulch and it went out to the street, I was surprised to see that. Is that allowed in our existing bylaw and it would not be allowed in this new one?
Oh, is that the one you wanted me to go look at the other week, during the other meeting?
3 weeks ago, yeah. I was getting ready to call you back to see if you've been out there and looked at it.
We did. We went out. So they're going to address that. No, that's not supposed to be like that. I don't know why they left it like that. So no.
Right. I mean, no, I saw it.
Okay.
I was like, I was almost tempted to tie it to the drive-through. That's something you would have liked us to do, to hold something over their head to solve it. I mean, as a board, we could take and hold something out like that if we saw something like that. It's just a thought. I'm done.
Okay, next up, Mike Raisbach. Any questions?
No, not at this point. I think I'm just going to have to sit down and read the new stuff from end to end, just to see what's in there.
Okay,
So-
thank you. Mike Walsh?
No, I have no questions. Thanks.
Okay. Deidre?
Thank you, Tim. I have a question that may just be my lack of understanding, but it sounds like you're doing all these inspections, but I'm not quite clear on what's the mechanism for enforcement if you find a problem.
That's part of the reason why we need this stormwater bylaw, so that there is a clear-cut way of saying, okay, you're not in compliance with the bylaw. Here's what we would need to do. Of course, we start off with a verbal warning and trying to solve the problem. And then if you don't solve the problem, then we can take civil action after that.
Okay, so it's litigation.
I mean, ultimately, we don't try to get there, but that's why we have the bylaw, that if we do need to go there, it's there. It also gives us a mechanism to say, we're going to clean it up because you made a mess and now we're going to bill you for it, type of thing.
Thank you.
Sure.
Paul?
I'm a little confused about how you come up with the percentages, like that 90%.
Mhm.
How does that, how do you figure that?
Yeah, so that was all given to us by EPA in the new MS4 permit. Those are the numbers that anybody who's covered under the MS4 permit in the state of Massachusetts, all new and redevelopment projects would need to comply with those, that if they're disturbing an acre or more.
How do you calculate that, though? That's the percentage. I just don't get
So how
that.
did EPA calculate those numbers? So those
Well, on a
those,
specific project, how would you say if they're not complying to that 90%?
right, so that would be done through stormwater design, through an engineer who has the means and methods to design for that specific. And there will be, yeah, sure.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I guess my question is this an art or a science? I think Paul's asking the same kind of question.
Yeah.
If there's a clear way to determine it's 85% or 90%, measuring some particular thing, that's fine. If you just go shopping around for engineers till you find one that says 90%, that's another thing.
And it doesn't
How
seem
you
like it's
do-
enforceable at that point. Yeah. It
Okay,
doesn't feel like it's enforceable. That's all I'm
So
thinking.
if you don't have a defined test criteria and
Hold
test
on one second,
methodology.
guys. Hold on one second. One person at a time. So Christina, do you want to answer their question?
okay, so I think I understand. So there are going, so let's see, DEP currently has the stormwater handbook, okay? This stormwater handbook goes through specifically on how one designs a site to meet the criteria of the Mass DEP, okay? So there's the same thing for these criteria. So as engineers and as designers, we all know, and they all know how to design a stormwater treatment unit to meet this criteria. So it is an engineering science, if you will, not necessarily I think if I put this here and then we test the water afterwards, it'll clear this much. No, like the products that are put in place in the ground have already been tested, and they have been determined that they remove so much phosphorus per acre or whatever the criteria is. So that's how it's done. It's an engineering methodology.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
Erica, do you have any questions?
Nope, I'm all set.
Okay. All right. Anybody else before we end with Christina? All right. I guess that's it. Thank you, Christina. We appreciate you taking the time and presenting.
Thank you so
And-
much. It was nice meeting you all too.
Yep, we'll go from there. All right. Next up is affordable housing presentation. David Hedison.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is David Hedison. Some of you have seen me around for quite some time. I may be a new face to some of you. So I'm David Edison, director of the Chelmsford Housing Authority. I started over at the Chelmsford Housing Authority when I was 16 years old and a student at Chelmsford High School. And I'm now age 50 and have been here for 33/34 years. So one thing is, some of you, may automatically assume they know what, what we do. We've changed a lot over the past 3 decades. So the Chelmsford Housing Authority, we manage state public housing, and we have a Section 8 voucher program. We founded a nonprofit, which goes by the acronym Choice Inc. back 20 years ago, and we develop affordable housing through that nonprofit. And most recently, we oversee 63 housing authorities and their capital plans for all of their state public housing developments. We have a staff of about 40 people, and we interact with the town with locally permitted projects through lotteries, monitoring. We take part in managing compliance with affordable units that have restrictions like the Kinlock, Beaverbrook Crossing. We look at Millen 3. We interact with Brick Hill Road, the Meadows. We can go back decades to some of the projects that we look at on a regular basis for rental housing. So, I could go on and on about all these numbers, but there's a face I want to show you. And if Deirdre can just look up for 1 second. This is Bertha. She just passed away 3 weeks ago. She was 101 years old. Bertha lived at McFarland Manor in Chelmsford Center for almost 3 decades. Our housing authority has 176 elderly units. And we have other senior units that we've built. And most of the seniors that are coming to our front door today, replacing Bertha, are waiting anywhere between 3 and 7 years. Closer to the 7 years than the 3. On the side of the families, we have 800 vouchers. So back in the day when I first started at the Housing Authority, we had less than 75. We have 800, and the Chelmsford Housing Authority, under the Section 8 Federal Housing Voucher Program, we administer this in 9 communities around Chelmsford. I got pretty sick and tired of having people come in And maybe it's none of your family members, maybe it's none of you, maybe none of you have ever experienced poverty or a major situation, but it's amazing to see the familiar faces that walk through the door, or the phone calls I receive from the community. And we were able to secure additional vouchers. We were able to build new developments through our nonprofit choice, but there continues to be this real challenge in constructing affordable housing. One of the challenges I face is, I'm like the skunk at the garden party. I want to say, thankfully, I have not had to come before the planning board or the zoning board for quite some time. But it's not something I look forward to, because affordable housing is almost like a dirty word in most communities if you haven't experienced it yourself or your family. And I wanted to show that face of Bertha, because that's the face of most of the people that we're serving. One of the most important things that I think I want to share with you tonight is the community has opportunities to develop affordable housing. We can say the dirty word that people say it is, 40B, and it will go through the zoning board. We can see inclusionary zoning with overlays, and the affordability level on the inclusionary zoning is at 50% of area median income. And I'll talk to you about that in a minute, what that means as far as what that affordable level is. Or you can see a nonprofit like myself come forward and try to build something that's not just 20%, 25%, but 100% affordable. Before I talk to you about different, what we do as an organization, there's one other small thing I want to mention. So first of all, we don't only build in Chelmsford. I just finished financing of a project in Fairhaven, Mass. I have a 3-phase project in Sandwich, a project in Taunton, 3 projects in Westford, and a few others. So we're throughout the state, and we're building affordable housing that the towns and cities want to see. Also, when projects are built in Chelmsford or in other surrounding communities, we receive the cost certifications. So I get to see the certified financials of developments that have been actually built, certified by an auditor, and I can see what actual costs are. So if someone walked up to me today and said, "Hey, David, can you look at this pro forma and see what this project we're anticipating for costs, what we're anticipating for expenses, what our potential profit is?" I can look at a project and I'm looking at it based upon today's market, whether it's for rent or for sale. And I'm able to use the experience I've had and, in determining, if a project appears to be viable, the profit margins, the proposed costs. So I look at actual cost certifications and pro formas that come forward. So I want to just show you a couple of things just to help you understand when I talk about affordable housing. So this chart here shows a lot of things, and I hate just showing numbers to people. I wanted to give you a story. So when the planning board, let's say, I'm assuming it was planning board that approved the Kinlock. Is that correct? Yes? Okay. So the affordable component of the Kinlock created affordable rental units at what we're going to call 50% AMI. What does that mean? I want to show you what that means if we look at the lower half of this chart. Under 50%, 1 bedroom, if you can see my mouse, you see where the 945 is? Right below that is 1,012 for a 1 bedroom, 1,215 for a 2 bedroom, and 1,404. That's considered an affordable unit at 50% of area median income. For me, that's the gold standard. I could have people lining up out the door to pay that full rent. Anyone that is eligible for these units have to fall under the income limits that are listed above. So now if you look above, for one person, that means they're earning less than $37,800. Okay? The typical standard is if for some reason one of you came forward and said, "I want to apply for the Kinlock and I have really not much income," we're not going to qualify someone for a $1,012 rent unless they can show us 3 times that in monthly income. So realistically, someone has to be earning at least $3,000 a month to qualify. So when you go back to that payment standard up top here, people that are going to qualify to move into that unit need to be making really close to the $37,800 if it's a single person. So when I go forward on a project like Chelmsford Woods, and I'm doing something called low-income housing tax credits, my affordable units, the highest affordable unit is the 45,000, okay, it's a 60% area median income, which down below is 1,215 for a one bedroom, 1,458, 1,685 for a three bedroom. And again, the associated income limits are listed above. So some people may be thinking, wow, these are like not free rents. You know, there's no free ride here, but it's a difference. It's a difference from what the market rents would be, and it's more affordable for the people earning these at these income limits. Just recently, I was meeting with a developer in Chelmsford who's looking at proposing a project, and that developer has been talking about, we're going to do affordable rental, we're going to do affordable rental, we're going to do affordable rental. I would encourage every planning board member, when they hear that word, to ask define affordable. Is it 30%, 50%, 60%, 80%? Because this developer, when asked further what he was proposing as affordable, was actually coming forward with 80% of area median income. So if all of you are going to spend time working on an affordable housing project and going through the horrible, difficult challenge, to work really hard to see a $1,620 rent for a one bedroom as affordable at 80%, or $1,944 for a two bedroom, or $2,247 for a three bedroom, it really is not affordable to this community. And if offered, we probably would not see a line coming out our door because it's so close to what market rent is. So one of the things I wanted to share with you is, when people talk about affordable housing, our inclusionary sets the rent at 50% AMI. In reality, when people sign up to do an actual affordable unit, and they're guaranteeing that they're going to charge no more than the $1,012, including all utilities, they're foregoing, the difference between this 1,012 with whatever that market rent is on a monthly basis. So that's what they're giving up, I could say, in order to make those units affordable. So one of the things that I wanted just to talk to you, and I won't spend forever here tonight, is I'll say this, when building Chelmsford Woods, 112 units, we're looking at around $27 million that went into building that development. The State Department of Housing and Community Development has basically 3 doors that open once a year. We go in when we're building 100% affordable units through the big door. That big door opens around October. And usually we have to knock on that door 3 years in a row before we're let in and possibly funded. What that means is, on a project, one phase, so let me just talk about Chelmsford Woods, half of it, like 60, half of the project. Let's say it's $15 million. I'll be asking the state for $13 million of state and federal funds. Then I'll be looking for funds from the town of Chelmsford, which could be the Community Preservation Fund, or it could be the money in the linkage account. Then I'll be carrying about a $1 million mortgage on the property. The only way we can make a project 100% affordable is by that huge influx of cash from the state or federal government and bringing it back to Chelmsford. That is the only way you're able to develop 100% affordable development. So what we do, or what other nonprofits do, is unique because we're accessing state and federal funds. When a developer comes forward, we're asking a developer to potentially, when I'm talking with them, they're proposing to me, we can build 12 units and give you affordable units, or, we can build 10, or, it's this conversation of over density. I don't need to, you understand density. So what ends up usually happening is more and more, even though I may speak with them and talk to them about what the affordable component would look like, we're seeing a payment in lieu of versus the actual units built. So it's the route they've been taking. The numbers that I had looked at and talked about were a max, because quite frankly, I think all of you understand if you're building on a piece of like virgin land that has not near any, doesn't have any issues. It's not a brownfield with pollution. There's no some old historic building that has to be preserved, or it's not like running next to a river or a stream or intermittent stream. And it's a very simple site to build. Maybe they could get to that, closer to that max number. But the reality is as we're seeing redevelopment of existing structures, historic, non-historic, expensive land, things get squeezed. And we really are never going to see that full amount of PILO that was laid out. I've met with a number of other old housing trust funds in other communities. And we always want to keep that goal really high, because maybe someday we'll be able to get the full amount. But what I see more often than not is a number lower. That's what reality is. So today, I just wanted to stop in and just say hello. It's much easier for me to come talk to you all when I don't have a project. It's much easier to come and talk to you when there's not a project in front of you about affordable housing. And for the new members, if someone says, oh yeah, talk to David, he's been around for a while, you may say, who the heck is David? I'm David. I've been doing housing for a long time. I love it. I'm passionate about it. I've heard a lot of stories and met a lot of great people. Chelmsford's a beautiful town. My mom taught here for 60 years, for now, almost 60 years, and passed away just 3 weeks ago. She loved this town more than anything and its kids. I love this town. And the dirty secret is, I guess, there's people in town that need affordable housing, and they got to live somewhere. And I'm the one that usually has to face those faces. And when you have public hearings and developers are proposing something, you're going to hear from abutters. You're going to hear from other departments. And sadly, the people that need the affordable housing are not showing up on your doorstep and saying, me too, or how about me, or how about my kids? So sometimes I have to play that role of being the one that says, hey, everybody, the planning board, when you're talking about these things, let's try to pull it back and remember, there's people in Chelmsford that need help. And I guess I have to be their voice. So I'm happy to answer any questions and be available anytime in the future to talk.
Yeah.
David, thank you very much. And I was at the Housing Advisory Board meeting the other day, and you did a great presentation there too, with great information. So thank you for taking the time. I'll run around the board and ask them if any of them have questions for David. You want to start, Mike Walsh?
Yeah, David, thank you for coming, and I do appreciate you coming to the board when there's not a project in front of us. And I think hopefully it's not the last time we see of you this year. I think we should have some intermediate meetings prior to that. It would be nice to, we don't have to do a deep dive tonight on the PILO, but I think we need to, as a board, come to an agreement on how we formulate that PILO. And because I think we've been all over the place a little bit. And from my opinion, I think the developers are trying to take advantage of us in the town when they come forward with their PILO recommendation. And I think it would be nice for the board to have a formula that we use across the board, and so that we're not creating the wheel every time. Do you have any suggestions on how to create the PILO formula?
Okay, so Mike, this is the $1 million question, because there's going to be projects, like realistically, the number where it is right now is not working. But people come forward and, I've seen projects, and I'll say it directly right to all of you. I looked at the Oddfellows house, just that standalone building with that building has floors, like every floor is like a step up or a step down. When I looked at the numbers just on the Oddfellows building, I said, this project has nothing. There's nothing in the Oddfellows house that can even afford a Pilo. You can't even do it as affordable. You better go look for community preservation funds if you're going to do affordable. While other projects I've looked at, early on, thought you could pay a little more. But the problem is, Mike, and the rest of the board, when a project comes forward, we don't have that crystal ball to know that abutters are not going to come out, drag things out, legal fees are going to go through the roof, or historic is going to also want to make sure that preservation occurs at a certain level, which is not at every project. So, Mike, depending if a project is 10 units or a 30-unit project, there's economies of scale. Land cost is a fixed cost, as well as the architectural and maybe the engineering. There's a lot of, I hate to say this, when I'm looking at projects, I will never do a project under 12 units ever again in my life, in my role. They're a nightmare. So I just would say, I wish I could say there's a perfect formula that will apply across the board, but depending upon the project, the location, the other things that are being asked for, the list of people asking for money, even depending upon what water district you're in, changes costs.
Mhm.
So
David,
believe me, Mike, I wish I had it.
But even at the meeting the other day, and I was going to bring this up with later. I was going to ask because Evan, a lot of people have been mentioning this, and we were going to try to maybe do a workshop or a meeting to work on this, and maybe David can be involved. I don't know, but I know a lot of us have issues with this. David did a great job, kind of explaining the same thing. And as we all know, these the developers, obviously, you think we're giving away a ton to them, but as David mentioned, a lot of times they're also doing things for the town. And I'm not just talking about a pocket park. It could be sewer pipes and other things. And I'm not saying it's all the time, but that's happened because I've asked David why sometimes it was low. He agreed to a low pilot because he just said sometimes there's just no money there with costs. So I don't know, Evan, is there a way to set up something that we could all work on this? Because I know we all have major issues with it.
Yeah, so I'll kind of say the same thing I said at Housing Advisory Board yesterday. I fully understand the board's frustration or the community's frustration with the PILO. However, I personally believe that the inclusionary bylaw that was adopted by town meeting and the way that the planning board has gone about administering the bylaw have been successful. And as David said, and as some planning board members know, each and every project is unique and different, not just what the planning board is trying to achieve, but what other departments are making asks related to. So I'll give you the quick rundown. Gristmill 1, a lot of asks was brick walk, redevelopment. They paid a third of their PILO. They also had BPAC made a request. They did a town repaving project along the bike trail. So that was a project, for a lack of a better word, dipped in gold from a zoning perspective. 241 Littleton Road paid the PILO in full. There was no negotiation. The reason for that is there were no asks. There were no water mains to be upgraded. There were no sewer mains to be upgraded. It was vacant land. So they would have had difficulty with a straight face saying to the planning board or to David Hedison or the Housing Advisory Board, we couldn't afford a full PILO.
Can I just jump in and say something really quick, Evan? Even on my project on Littleton Road, last minute, we were asked to do a $1 million water loop. So that project at 241 benefited from the new water line loop I had to put in for the whole neighborhood,
Sure.
which was $1 million ask, which almost killed my project.
Yeah. 152 Turnpike was your next project. I think the planning board was probably the one that decided how that project was going to play out. And if I recall correctly, and many of the board members here tonight were on that hearing, I think the board prioritized what they thought was best for the neighborhood. The developer, you recall, said that they could have and would have built the apartment building with all the affordable units. The neighborhood and the board didn't think an apartment building was the best fit for that particular location and in that particular neighborhood. So the board put on its planning hat, its density hat, and prioritized what was best from a zoning planning perspective. Just down the street, 104 Turnpike, the Kinlock, they came in fully compliant with inclusionary, 50% AMI. All of those units counted towards our subsidized housing inventory. So I think if one were to take a look at the full spectrum, the bylaw and the way the board has administered it we've done exactly what we said we would do at town meeting. It wasn't the one size fits all. It was giving the planning board the power and ability to try to figure out what works best based upon the neighborhood and all the other asks from water districts, sewer, streets, sidewalks, 53G money, environmental, brook walks. So, when I hear that the board thinks it's broken or the community thinks it's broken, I struggle with that. I'm puzzled by it. If everyone wanted to reduce the PILO amount to, let's say, 25 to 30, because that's the average we get per unit, and that makes everybody feel good, then so be it. But on the other hand, as David Edison is saying, those numbers reflect the market gap between an affordable unit and a non-affordable unit. And if the planning board wanted to prioritize the PILO over everything else that you have to encounter and balance, then the planning board could send that message to the developer. But somewhere along the project, the developer is going to say, okay, I can afford to pay 100% PILO, but I can't do these sidewalk upgrades. I can't do this upgraded architecture. I can't do this quality of landscaping. In worst case scenario, the developer would have to say, I'm going to have to go back to the water district or the sewer commission and ask them for a reduction in what they're asking. So I think the planning board members understand the levers that you can push and pull. And again, from my perspective, I think we've done a really good job based upon the other factors that are at play here. But it goes without saying, if the board wanted to make affordable housing the priority, the number one priority, then I think a lot of these PILOs would be higher, because you would by default, you wouldn't be prioritizing or echoing other requests that other committees are making or town departments are making.
Can I?
I agree with you.
Sorry.
I mean, I've been around a little bit longer than some of the other board members, and the negotiation factor is big for us. Even like you were talking about Turnpike Road, we did so much development over there. NEMCOG helped get us the redevelopment of the 129 down there to Riverneck Road, and a lot of that money came from just producing affordable. There's a lot of other things that are floating out there that people don't realize what's going on. And I think a lot of times when they come in front of us and they're expecting a 100% reduction, they might be surprised, because I'm one that's I've always said something, they even be small, but we want something out of them, because it's just not a total giveaway. And we're always willing to listen to somebody and say, what are they going to do for the community? And I think this is probably part of the work session stuff that we started talking about before, streamline the project. And I think after our meetings, we will have to start getting back to it.
Henry, this alone though, like you said, just talking about it, Evan, I think, because a lot of times people just see us reducing it and then, we're giving away everything. I know, Deirdre, you had questions with it. Do you want to ask them? You're muted, I think.
I guess I have a couple thoughts. One is that it's part of the formula that's currently in place was approved by town meeting. Am I correct? So it's part of the zoning. So I feel like if we go to town meeting and say, this is what we're going to do, and then we do something quite dramatically different, I don't think that reflects well on our, I guess I don't know what quite the word is. Maybe integrity is too strong. So I have issues with that. I think if we're going to do something completely different with every project, then we shouldn't have a formula. I also went back and looked at the grist mill Bylaw. I actually asked a question at town meeting last year when the grist mill Bylaw was being transferred between accounts, as happens at the end of the budget year. And I was told by Evan, go back and talk to the planning board. They negotiate it with the developers. And so I went back and looked at those meetings just recently, and I really couldn't, Phil Iliopoulos came up with a number that he said that's what they're willing to pay. And the planning board accepted it, but I didn't see the breakdown. And then there was a change in the number of units. And so they took that original number that I don't know where it came from and changed the ratio based on the new ratio. And then a new developer came in and they changed altogether the whole project, but they used that same old number. I guess
frustrating.
It's very frustrating. And I feel like I'd like to have the affordable units. I don't even know if we should be doing Bylaw. I'm worried about the safe haven. I'm worried about if we had that money for David to build projects, then we wouldn't have concerns about the safe haven. We're right around 10%, right? Without the project on Riverneck Road, which, that land's for sale. Those permits are old. I don't think that project's happening. And I don't know what's going on with West Campus, but I don't know that we can depend on those units either. So I feel like we're perilously close to 10% and yet not building affordable units and not following the formula that we said we were going to follow. So I'm frustrated with this.
Is it
Go ahead,
okay?
Dave. Yep.
I know I'm long-winded. Deirdre, Thank you. So I had said earlier, and I just wanted to say when we were working on that number, it was supposed to be, that was like the high water mark. And it was supposed to be then determined by planning board based upon a number of factors and number of asks that end up going through the meat grinder when a project comes forward. So it was never my understanding as being like an outsider, an advocate for affordable housing. So literally, like, I wanted the full Bylaw for the first project at Grist Mill to go through. But as you started to see the asks from the community, the changes as it evolved, that their ability to pay the full Bylaw started decreasing. So it would be, well, I would say I'm a housing advocate. And as soon as I start saying we want affordable units or nothing else, that's a dangerous place to walk, especially because you may have outcomes on certain parcels that are a priority for the community. When you say, we're only going to accept the 250 or nothing, you're now creating a situation where, parcels may go undeveloped that could be tax generating for the community and providing some Bylaw that can be matched, doubled, tripled, times 100 with state or federal funds. So while I would love to be able to go, with a certain list of, ailments I have and know black and white, this is what I have, sometimes things aren't that way and you have to use judgment. And that's where it's like, I want to interact with planning board because me showing up when you're looking at a specific project, it's already loaded. So I'm happy to talk offline, one-on-one or whatever. So I'm happy to do that, Deirdre.
Before we move on from Deirdre's comments, it's still a learning lesson.
Sure.
We've only done 5 or 6 of these, and as I said, each and every one of them are completely different, just by their proposals. My message to the board is, I think it's worthwhile for the board to have a conversation about the bylaw based upon the fact that we approved it. It was adopted 5 years ago. And as Henry has said to the board over the years, it was primarily adopted to help the town get to 10%. We're now at 10%. So it makes sense to have a conversation about, should the bylaw be revised? Is there a different strategy? Refining the strategy. The other item that I mentioned to the Housing Advisory Board is what happens with UMass West is a critical component to how affordable housing plays out in this community, and indirectly or directly how the inclusionary housing bylaw should be used or can be used by the community and by developers. So I think whatever discussions we have related to inclusionary bylaws, I think we need to keep a close eye on what is the town's goals with UMass West and how does that play out? Because they are directly related, particularly if we're concerned about keeping pace with 10%, being comfortably over 10%, or potentially falling under 10%. Setting that aside, I think I think my position is pretty clear to you. I don't think the bylaw itself is broken or a problem. I have told planning board members individually, this is probably the first time I've said it publicly and to all of you, I think the way the board goes about its business within the regulatory public hearing is somewhat haphazard. And I think board members have picked up on this, that there isn't a lot of consistency as to how the board does a technical review during its public hearing, particularly where it's controversial or complex. Gristmill 1 was both of those. And so what tends to happen is the board is so focused on the traditional review elements, parking, traffic, architecture, layout, design, and affordable housing begins to kind of fall further down on the priority list for review. Eventually the board gets to it. That somewhat happened with Gristmill 2, for a lack of a better word. Affordability wasn't the primary discussion. And I say this because it relates back to what I said. I think the board knows what it wants to prioritize project to project. If the planning board, if the developer presented, and then the planning board said, but the first thing the planning board said is, we want you to build the affordable units, then the developer is going to say, okay, my proposed 32 units is not going to go up by 20% because that's what your bylaw allows me to do. So most of the board members probably know, let's not start with increasing density. So that's the dynamic that the planning board is challenged with, is trying to figure out what are its priorities and what are the abutting properties priorities and what's the community's priorities. Final comment, because I don't want to belabor this. I do think it's warranted to have a workshop. Yesterday at Housing Advisory Board, we talked about trying to strengthen the PILO. If some of you recall, back in 2014-15, when this inclusionary and PILO was being workshopped by the planning board, David Edison was at the table, a housing specialist was at the table. And we identified a lot of other options that could have been included in the inclusionary housing bylaw, one of which was a clawback clause, similar to what 40B does with a post financial audit. At the time, and rightfully so, I think the planning board made the right call. The planning board said, we want the inclusionary housing bylaw to be as simple and as straightforward as possible. We don't want to make it more complicated than it needs to be as a first step. Let's see how it goes for a couple of years and then revisit. So I think we're right on track. I think the planning board's been talking about workshopping inclusionary and PILO for probably well over 12 months. I think we've reached the point where it makes sense. But I get puzzled and frustrated when I hear planning board members say that there's something wrong with the PILO itself. As David said, you're better off from a negotiations perspective to keep it at a high number, because what if there is a project like 241 Littleton Road where there's no reason that they can't afford it? So again, it all goes back to giving the board the power to negotiate and leverage one special permit against another special permit where the board thinks the project is worth approving. Period, the end.
Okay. Yeah.
Mike, back.
Yeah, a couple of comments on that. I rather agree with Evan and David. I don't really think there's anything particularly wrong with the bylaw. Where I do see something that's not working very well is in the process that we as a board apply in this negotiation. And I don't think we're way off the mark, but I think we could, and this is something that a work session could really help pin down. We can lay down something procedural. I mean, for example, something as simple as a formal list for our own use of what the givebacks are, what this particular project is getting, what this particular, put some organization to the process of determining what the proper PILO is. And I agree, the ability of the board to pick something from 0 all the way up to what the bylaw says is, we don't want to limit that. I don't see us wanting to limit the range over which the board can operate. But I do believe that we can be much more specific about how we do that determination. And I don't think it's really hard. I think it's just a matter of adding a little bit of internal process to this. And I think if we do that, we'll come out fine.
Just to
All
speak
right.
to that, because I just want to add one important message. Procedurally, if you recall, and this is for some of this more seasoned planning board members, when we first adopted this bylaw, developers would come to me. I would send them directly to the Housing Advisory Board, and David would then engage. And a couple of projects into this, I think, Henry, you were, I think, the one that brought this to the board's attention, where the board basically said, we don't want projects going to Housing Advisory Board first. We want them to come to us first, and then they go. So we now, applicability, they now go to you first. When they apply for their special permit, they then go to Housing Advisory Board. On the last couple projects, particularly Gristmill 2, as you guys know, the developer didn't even go to Housing Advisory Board till the 11th hour.
Mhm.
So that's a nuance with procedure. Again, the way the board, I think, wants it set up is where the board is dictating whether it wants to prioritize affordable housing or PILO, as opposed to Housing Advisory Board or David or myself. Give you a concrete example, Glenview. If you recall, they came in under applicability. They said they would build 12 and they would do 2 affordable, 100% compliant. They heard from the you guys heard from the neighbors. Attorney Melissa Robbins picked up on that at the public hearing legal procedure could be a little bit more difficult than anticipated. She came back to you and asked for your reconsideration. The board gave clear and concise direction where you said your preference would be 10 units. And at the time, she said she would be able to afford 100% PILO. Made all the sense in the world to everybody. Then they submit their detailed plans. Technical reviews from departments take place. And during that public hearing, what was originally a 300,000 PILO became a $70,000 PILO, primarily based upon a significant request from the water district. So that's how that particular project played out. What I've said to you is, if the planning board, as part of its public hearing, wanted to or was able to leverage and negotiate, what the water district asks is really not relevant to the planning board process. It's relevant to the developer's pro forma. But there's nothing preventing a planning board from asking a developer to go back to a particular entity and ask for a waiver, ask for a reduction, no different than the planning board being asked to make reductions. So it all depends on how you want to use your process to engage with other entities that are making asks. At the end of the day, we have no control over the water districts. Planning board has no control over the water districts, but they're using your forum to get their asks incorporated into the development project. So there's a roadway, there's a mutual beneficial roadway within the planning board process.
Thank you, Evan. I know we've kind of beat this up, and I just want to say this, and maybe the new members can understand. I've been on for a little bit, but when it does come up, you kind of depend on the rest of you guys for, and David, and you look at everything, what they're doing. So I think a workshop is needed, because I even think at the meeting the other day, the Housing Advisory, David, you gave some good tips, like, and Evan, about you could come after them after the sale, if they reach a certain number or something. So I think the workshop would be good for the newer members, myself, to know what you can do, because there are other options. So, and to clarify, and I think a lot of people in the town are very, have been upset thinking that we're giving everything away, but in the reality, they don't know all the facts. So like you said, Evan, I don't think it's broke, but I think maybe explaining it a little bit more, and maybe what our options could be. So I think a workshop is needed. How do we go about getting that scheduled?
We'll look at the upcoming agendas and see if we can identify a lighter one.
Oh, okay. Does anyone have anything they need to say about the Pilo anymore, or are we all set to pass on that for now?
Yeah, let's just have the work session.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. All right, David, thank you very much. Yep.
One last ask. It's not Pilo related, but I think I would ask all of you on planning board just to be mindful. You're active community residents here, if we can build 100% affordable housing somewhere in Chelmsford, that'd be awesome. We have money in our inclusionary zoning. We have money with CPC. We can do it. But it can't be me just finding a site and saying, yeah, this is a preferred location for senior housing or, or family housing. I may have ideas of building onto the Chelmsford Senior Center, 36 units built onto the Chelmsford Senior Center. I think it'd be some seniors would be really happy, but I think some people in town may not be happy. I may think behind Westland School, like the B field where B building was, might be a great place. I'd probably be shot at. I shouldn't say that, but I can't make these decisions on my own, but I know all the challenges we face. So if we can also be thoughtful about, we know where we don't want housing, but can you help identify where some housing should be built? And that would just be my last ask, and it's something you could all think about. That's all. Thank you so much for letting me do tonight.
Thank you, David. We appreciate your time. All right, so that would be it, I guess. David was the last. We already did the minutes. Do we have anybody have any? I know it's getting late, but
Tim, I got two quick items to bring to the board's attention on scheduling. I sent emails out to the board. The select board would like to begin their warrant review with zoning, of all things, this upcoming Tuesday, April 20th at 6 p.m. I had indicated to the town manager that I am available. I indicated to the board that I was available. However, similar to FinCom, it is very beneficial for your other elected and appointed boards and committees to see and hear from you. So I would encourage you, or I'd ask you, who can attend, join me on next Tuesday, April 20th at 6 p.m. In front of the select board to begin the presentation on the zoning articles. That would be fantastic. I have no doubt they'd want to hear from you, to hear what your thoughts and opinions were as we workshopped and discussed and deliberated those articles.
Okay. Do we have members that can definitely be there that night?
I think I can. I will certainly try.
I can be there.
You can be there, all right.
I expect to be.
Okay, so
Excellent,
Evan,
thank
we
you.
should have maybe
Great.
4 or so.
Beautiful. Second item, I also sent an email. The select board is interested in scheduling a joint meeting with the planning board to have a meet and greet and high-level presentation from the developer who's interested in advancing a project at UMass West. This joint meeting is contemplated for Thursday, April 29th at 7 p.m. The entire select board has committed to this date. They're all available. This would be via Zoom. So my question to the planning board is how many of you would be available Thursday, the 29th at 7 p.m.?
Evan, is there a master plan meeting that night?
No, the next master plan meeting is the 22nd.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I have a meeting that night. How many other members can be there?
I'll be there.
I think I could be
I
there.
can attend.
Okay, so we should have
Look
a good,
forward to it.
Okay, so I will, Tim, since you're the chair, I will let the select board and the town manager know that you would not be able to attend. How does the board feel about proceeding with the, Tim not being able to?
Mike Raisbach could.
I'll take it. I'll handle it.
Okay. This will be the first of many meetings.
Mm.
Just the beginning. I have no idea what will transpire or where it will go from that initial meeting. All right, excellent. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Just lastly, does any committees have anything to report back? Quickly, anyone?
Tim?
Yeah,
Yeah, 2 things. The Route 40 houses on the north side went before the Historical Commission this week for demo requests. So I don't know whether there will be a project coming before us in the future to reallocate those lots, redivide them once that's dealt with, but it will first have to go through all the demo request and analysis and whatnot at the Historical Commission. The other thing that I had was a request to you as chair to send out a note to the chair of all of the committees that we are liaisoning with the liaison assignments to those committees and just kind of, do a appropriate PR.
okay,
To introduce who's going to be there and why.
okay. Yeah, I think Colleen will help me with that.
Yep.
Okay, does anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I do. I have one item that I'd like to see us consider possibly for a work session in the future. And as a matter of fact, it's a topic that came up a little earlier in this meeting toward the beginning. But in a general sense, we do projects, we negotiate things, we negotiate landscaping, we negotiate architecture, we negotiate all manner of stuff. The project finishes up, or so they say, and then we look a little bit later and, well, maybe they didn't do all the things they said they would do, or they didn't do them to the extent that we would like them done. Maybe they were supposed to put up big trees and they put up a bunch of daffodils instead, or something else like that. These are all matters of post-permit enforcement. And I think it probably would behoove us to have a discussion of what the methods of enforcement are. I mean, we could always guarantee enforcement by charging everybody $100,000 performance bond. That seems a little bit draconian, and there are a lot of small developers that couldn't do it. But we can accomplish it if we absolutely have to, but there really ought to be better ways to do it. Just saying, well, the building inspector can note violations doesn't seem to be enough to to get the projects past the 95% point to the 100% point. I think we should have something of a discussion of this. And I think Evan is probably in the best position to tell us what the enforcement options are. And then we can maybe talk a little bit about how we might use them in the future. I don't know, does anybody else have a thought on that? Whether we ought to do that?
I agree. Anybody else on the board?
I absolutely agree.
I totally agree.
Okay,
Gotta have a
so
work session.
Basically, everything that pertains to zoning, not just the permits that we put through, but virtually everything pertaining to zoning.
okay, so Evan, is that something you can plan for us for the future too?
Sure, when we find a light agenda.
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
Can
excellent,
we
Mike.
do that at a work session?
Yes. And so when we refer to work sessions, historically, prior to COVID, we were doing those in 205 and they were not televised, correct? Is that people's
Correct.
recollection?
Yeah.
So think about how you guys want to do workshops moving forward.
Hey, I've got a question. How many people are fully vaccinated?
I am. Ah, that almost says,
We're getting close.
yeah.
Okay, so does anybody else have anything? All right, I would like to congratulate everybody and thank you. This was actually a great meeting. Go.
Yeah, I
Right.
did have one other thing, and that is something that Henry had started a few months back, a discussion that I'd like to see carried into a workshop as well, which is adding some procedure and some
Structure.
maybe some delegation of expertise or delegation of specific review areas for large projects, so that we make sure that we have all the pieces covered in an organized way.
Okay,
I think it's just a discussion for another work session.
all right, great. Sounds perfect. Evan will take note of that. And does anybody have a motion for me?
Yes, I do.
All right, Mike Raisbach, motion, second by,
I would like to
Adjourn.
adjourn.
all right, that's it. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you all.
Thank
Good
you.
night, folks.
Have a good one.
Nice to meet you all.
Very nice to meet you.